Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Don't Open That Door. I'm your host Justin, joined today by Dan. Dan, what's up, man?
I'm feeling pretty good, pretty colorful today.
Oh, you feeling
God
pretty
damn it,
colorful?
I was gonna say that.
Aha!
And
I
that
swear to
voice,
God.
that anger with the reddish hue must be Nico. Nico, how you doing?
I
Not
feel
colorful,
like
because Dan already is.
Yeah, I feel like I just had something beautiful stolen from me, but it's okay.
As a minority, I can vibe with both of those statements. So today we're going to be talking about The Color Out of Space. Color Out of Space. Released technically in 2019. Directed by Richard Stanley, was a huge deal. This was the first feature film he's directed in quite a long time. Written by Scarlett Amaris and, of course, based on the original work by H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh my God.
This stars Nick Cage, Madeline Arthur, Elliot Knight, Tommy Chong, and Brendan Meyer. So this movie basically opens with a kind of, would you call them an idyllic family, Nico?
I mean, yeah, I would say so. Also, you forgot the mom, Jolie Richardson. But yeah, no, I'd say they're nice. They're quaint. They're humble.
They're a modern family, to say the least.
Yeah.
So, they're kind of going about their daily lives in a small town in the middle of nowhere. And there's tons of references, of course, to, they're close by Arkham, aren't they, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's when we're kind of introduced to Ward, who, he's wearing a Miskatonic U jersey, and that pretty much any fans of Lovecraft immediately were like, oh my God, Miskatonic U, do you know that? That's where some Lovecraftian stuff goes down.
Justin and I were talking about that as we were watching. We sounded just like that, you guys. It was weird.
It was intimate. But Ward is the hydrologist, and he's come to investigate the water. So there's kind of a subplot in this movie going on about how the water table, there's issues with it, and they're trying to get it to be better for the people. So, he's over here testing the water, and he eventually meets up with the daughter in the film, Lavinia, who is yet another reference to a previous work of Lovecraft, the Dunwich Horror. And that probably spoke to something that happens later on in the movie. So we're sitting there, and a giant meteor just falls from space, and it hits lands directly in the Gardner family's yard. Now, once that happens, strange things start to happen as a result. Dan, why don't you go into some of those things?
Well, let's see. Some new plants start coming up. Some bright purple and pink plants and ivy and things. The dog starts acting weird, as they always do in movies like this.
Which we have covered on a previous episode.
Yeah. The different characters start to sort of be in trance-like effect sometimes, not really seeing or paying attention to what they're doing. And the younger son, what's his name, Benny?
No, I think that's Jack.
He's the older one. Yeah, Jack. Thank you.
Jack, yeah.
He thinks he sees somebody from their well in their backyard, and he keeps having conversations with this other person.
And you want to know what? It's actually pretty bad, because Ward tests the water, and the strip that he tests starts to glow a kind of undefinable, indescribable color. Note to the viewers, that color is actually purple/pink, but we're meant to suspend our disbelief and see that it's this undescribable. You can't grasp it. It's a color you've never seen. The same color that the meteor glowed when it fell from space. Now, the idea is that the meteor hits the ground and basically contaminates the groundwater, which causes all these weird things to happen. So at this point in time, Ward speaks to Ezra, who's kind of a drugged out squatter. And Ezra starts to hint that things might be changing, and more on him later. So as Dan basically said, the family starts to break down, and they all start to kind of slowly descend into madness, whether it's taking on emotions that might not necessarily be theirs or how they really should feel, overreacting at things. And it keeps going, and it escalates more and more and more, which is a trademark, of the Lovecraftian/cosmic horror genre. And as this continues on, we then hit a point where the really strange things start to happen. So as Nico was saying earlier, Joelle Richardson's character, Teresa, she's slicing up carrots one day, and she chops off 2 of her fingers. So they got to rush her to the hospital. And once Nathan Gardner, played by Nick Cage, and his wife are gone, they can't call their kids anymore. They get static, where they hear weird voices, and things just start to really deteriorate. And I keep using that word, but that's exactly what happens. Ward goes back to visit Ezra a second time, and Ezra kind of tells him, I hear them. I hear them under the floor. I hear them chattering. And then he also goes, yeah, man, that thing that came, it's not like things from here. And it's going to make things like they're not supposed to be. He gives a really awesome quote, and I tried to take it down, but I was so caught up in the movie that I just kind of forgot. And that basically leads us. Yeah, it was. And I mean, this movie, from then on, it just takes off and does not stop. Colors explode. The plants overgrow everything. People literally turn into monsters. I mean, hell, they even had an alpaca monster, which it was like a fusion of monsters. I mean, it was just incredible. And it all builds and builds and builds until in kind of like one massive burst, the color's gone. And we're just left with the character of Ward, who,
God, that was such a beautiful scene.
After having witnessed everything, is just a shell of his former self. And I will say I glossed over a lot. And I know we typically do cover spoilers on this podcast, but I do really want to leave a little bit for anyone who wants to see this movie, because in my personal opinion, and we'll discuss this obviously, I thought this was a great movie and well worth watching. So to start with, I'm going to go ahead and ask you, Nico, what kind of movie is this? Because we already kind of said it was cosmic horror, but what is that? What is this kind of movie?
Right. So cosmic horror definitely hits the nail on the head. And some of you folks at home might be sitting and thinking, but wait, this takes place in... Did they say what state it takes place? Massachusetts or something? Like somewhere
I'm assuming it's in Massachusetts.
Yeah, because that's where I believe Arkham is. But at any rate, it doesn't take place in space. This isn't Alien or something. So how is it cosmic? Cosmic horror is a sort of genre and term that came about obviously through H.P. Lovecraft and his works, and it comes to us in a different way than other horror genres like slasher or creature feature or like a possession or something, where it is fundamentally based off of the horror of not being able to truly comprehend something, the level of forces that just are well and beyond our own comprehension, and when they interfere with our lives, it makes our sanity slowly fray until we are just withered husks and shells of who we once were. So,
well, that was very poetic.
Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, no. It's really where they're just trying to wear at the edges of your sanity more so than they are trying to make you scared, I would say.
And to that end, Dan, how did the sounds, and particularly in this movie, the colors, how do they kind of do that for you?
So I really liked the music, the score for it. I noticed that like at the beginning, I think the very first scene, when Ward arrives in the area and he meets Lavinia, the daughter, she is a witch, practices the dark arts, I guess. So she's like
Wicca
performing.
Not Alexandrian.
No. Well, she doesn't say Wicca. She doesn't actually say
that's
what
true.
it is.
That is true.
Because he asks whether it's Wiccan or Alexandrian and guesses Alexandrian, and all she says is, "You're wrong," but she doesn't say what it was.
True enough.
But anyways, I actually found it really interesting because the music at that point sounded almost fairy tale-ish. Like
Yep.
it sort of reminded me a little bit of a fairy tale or something like that. But then as the movie got darker, the music got darker as well, and it was very emotive, I guess. Expressionful is not the right word, but
Expressionist.
I guess expressive is the word I was looking for. But and the colors, I loved the colors. And one quick thing to note about, and you mentioned like the color of the color out of space and the rock and everything is supposed to be a color that we've never seen before. The characters have never seen, which, obviously you can't really portray that. But one thing I did find interesting was the color that they chose to represent it is magenta, which magenta, I was reading, does not exist from a single wavelength of light as part of the color spectrum of visible light.
It's what?
An extraspectral color. It's only perceived by humans in a specific interaction of the optical rods in their eyes that detect red and blue colors.
That's fucking wild.
So it's not actually a natural color.
Holy shit.
And there's a few other colors like that. It's not like the only one or anything, but I thought it was cool that I think they did put a little bit of thought into it and said, okay, what color would be sort of one of the most unusual or unnatural colors? and they came up with magenta, I guess. So,
Okay. Yeah.
I thought that was kind of interesting.
That's a really impressive little touch there. Wow.
Yes, for sure. Also, I did notice as well, this is one of those movies, and we've seen a couple prior to this episode of the pod. We reviewed Gretel and Hansel, which was, also a pretty modern horror. And it kind of, these movies have started to kind of, for lack of a better word, eschew like an orchestral style horror. And they seem to rely more on like electronic synths and ambiance.
I'm all about that shit,
Yeah.
personally.
I wonder if that's mainly budgetary or if maybe there's like kind of a darker tone you can strike with some of these more inorganic sounds.
I actually think that it is reflective of just the trend in modern horror in general, because there's another movie that we might do a bonus episode on later, Hereditary, that has a lot of orchestration similar to this, specifically with that first scene that Dan was talking about, where it seems almost fairy-like with the wind instruments and the violins being very staccato and just dreamy. And I think that we are seeing, or rather we will be seeing, more and more horror movies use orchestration and arrangements like this to give it this sort of ethereal vibe.
Okay. Now, obviously, I cannot let this go without going more into the visuals, really. I mean, hats off. Seriously, hats off. Like,
Justin, how many times did I interrupt you to say, oh my God, this is beautiful?
I mean, quite a few times. It was, there are some shots. There's a scene, and this seems like a weird place to start, but at the very end of the movie, when the color leaves, the area of effect is completely white. And it's such a crazy contrast to the kind of overabundance of colors that you see like moments before that. It's such a crazy change. And just throughout the movie, right, the colors are slowly introduced. At first, the place is really green. Then you get a couple small plants. Then the animals start to change colors.
Dude, that praying mantis was gorgeous.
Yeah, everything just becomes warped. And then there's huge flowers and the plants are now infected. And it's such a gradual build. And then once you notice it's already happened, it's almost too late. It's there. And that, I think, is the essence of it. And I have to, again, give a shout out to the creatures, because I thought the creature effects were really, really, really well done.
Stellar.
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it wasn't entirely CG, was it?
I don't know.
To my knowledge, I don't think it was.
It looked real. Like it looked like there was actual things, particularly
the alpaca beast.
Yeah, the alpaca beast. And there's also kind of like a mutated human, for lack of a better word, that both, you could tell it wasn't CG. Something was there. And I will say this every chance I get, it looks so much better. I really got to say that really was awesome. It was amazing. Now let's get to the acting here. Of course, all the characters had to exhibit signs of a mental breakdown, but I think they kind of drafted in the one man they knew would nail it no matter what, Nick Cage. Nico, memes aside, how do you feel about his performance?
I love Nick Cage for exactly the same reasons that everyone either hates him or, laughs him up in terms of the memeable qualities that he has. Nobody does madness and insanity quite like Nick Cage. He's just so good at getting the, moment to moment pacing of slowly having your sanity just take away. He is the best in the business at that, I would say. And having him be the father of the Gardner family and having a lot of our interactions sort of pivot around how he is, slowly starting to, at first he's just questioning stuff with, what's happening in the town. Like, why is there this weird rock? Do I sound stoned when I'm on this TV interview, guys? I thought that was a really funny moment. But just having everything sort of pivot and anchor around him in particular, since he's so practiced at it, was a fantastic choice for casting.
Am I the only one that thought that so the way that he descends into madness is he sort of starts to become his father?
Yep.
Correct.
And like his characteristics of his father, which weren't necessarily good. But was I the only one who thought that when he was speaking in his father's voice, he sounded kind of like Donald Trump?
Yup.
No, he absolutely did.
Absolutely did.
And I don't even mean that as like a joke or anything, but like he took on a voice
Genuinely.
very similar to that.
Yes. Now, I don't know if that was like,
intentional.
well, I don't know if that was like his dad was maybe supposed to be from New York and then he just was like, I'm going to just, mirror Trump for the New York accent. But, it was like spot on, sounded like someone was trying to sound like Trump. Like absolutely did.
Which now that I think about it is pretty funny, but hey.
So, but we don't just have Nick Cage here. We've also got probably, I would say the second kind of, family member involved. We've got
She's
Madeline,
the Black Mage.
We've got Madeline Arthur, Lavinia, the residential witch of the family. I thought she did pretty well. I thought she did well. I don't think her role necessarily needed as much nuance as Nick Cage's did, but I thought she did well.
I thought she was fantastic. I thought she was the best part of the movie aside from Nick Cage, personally.
Well, we'll get to that in just a second.
So yeah, I mostly agree with you, Nico, and mostly because I think she was my favorite.
Likewise.
I did not like Nick Cage's acting as much as you guys did. I didn't dislike it by any means, but I don't think he was phenomenal.
Okay.
Interesting. Could you explain why?
I don't know. Honestly, I can't really put a finger on it. I just didn't. Maybe it was his character that I didn't vibe with quite as much. Again, in no way, shape, or form did I dislike it. I just didn't think it was like the best performance ever or anything like that.
And that's fair. That's fair.
That's fair. A little bit. I mean, I personally like the way that he could kind of snap back and forth between
normal.
The
scene with the tomatoes, man.
Yes. So there's a scene where he goes to pick tomatoes, and like I said before, they were all mutated and wrong. So he just has a scene where he just starts biting into them and spitting them out and throwing them away and raging out at his wife who comes downstairs. And then instantly, boom, he just snaps back to being normal, as if none of that ever happened. And I thought it was convincing, but I could see how, you might not like his performance as much.
I almost feel like he was overacting just like 2%. And I'm being real picky. Like I wouldn't like review this movie and be like, oh, Nick Cage overacted. But if I'm being picky about it, I would say he overacted just a little bit.
Okay. And we've also got to I have to give personal props to Elliot Knight, who played Ward, who is basically the kind of almost like the man of science who comes to the village. And we can talk about, how that is also another Lovecraftian trope. But yeah, I really liked Ward. And I appreciated the evolution of his character from the start of the movie where he's just, hey, I'm here to test some water, to the end where he's so bitter and jaded. And I didn't even realize that he was the narrator from the start of the movie.
A little note about that. So prior to recording this episode of our podcast, I own the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft. He's one of my favorite authors. But and I was sitting down to read Color Out of Space, and cards on the table. I didn't finish it in time because I realized I had to do a ton of grocery shopping. But the very first opening lines of the Color Out of Space, I keep saying that Color Out of Space.
It is the Color Out of Space.
Yeah, really? Okay.
The Lovecraftian book is the short story is The Color Out of Space. The movie is Color Out of Space.
Oh, well, that's odd. At any rate, the opening lines are the exact same. The description of, the warped trees west of Arkham and the fantastic hills that warp your eye and stuff like that, that is directly lifted from the book. And I thought that was a wonderful touch.
True. So let's get down to the nitty gritty here and say, first off, do we think this movie has a protagonist?
I do, yeah.
I do, yes.
I do, yes. All right. On the count of 3, everyone say your protagonist.
Uh-oh.
3, 2, 1.
Nathan. Your protagonist.
Lavinia.
Lavinia.
All right. So it's going to be a 2v1 battle.
Yeah.
But all right, so go ahead and give me a very short, if you will, rationale. Why is Lavinia the protagonist?
I think she's the protagonist because everything happens around her. And she is the one who sees the descent of everyone descending into madness. Whereas other people maybe realize it, but like I think like Nick Cage's character realizes it, but only barely. But she recognizes that everyone else is starting to go crazy. She's the one who's like, we need to get out of here. We need to leave, and tries to leave. And then near the end, she realizes, and she even says, my family can't leave here. This thing is here for us. Like, it's our property, it's our place. We can't leave. And her character develops to see that and understand that. And I just think that like she's the center of everything. And throughout the whole movie, it's all, I don't quite want to say from her perspective, but it follows her.
Okay,
Like
Nico,
every scene and everything, she's there pretty much.
do you have anything to add to that?
I mean, I agree with pretty much everything that Dan said. And I do want to point out her brother, Benny, played by Brendan Meyer, is the other member of the family who is just, pretty level-headed and chill. And they have a nice little back and forth there. But we definitely get much more of a focus on Lavinia in terms of, who could be the protagonist. I personally view it to be her because, and follow me on this one, a lot of Lovecraft's writing we are not having the perspective of the people that it is happening to. We are often given the perspective of someone on the outside looking in. And at least for a time, Lavinia does maintain a lot of her sanity. And she, tries to get better, or sorry, she tries to leave and get to a better situation and tries to make the best of it. Normally in the short story, it would be Ward, Elliot Knight's character, would be taking the role there, but we just don't see as much screen time or much of his perspective as we do with the others. But why do you think that our boy Nick Cage, or Nathan Gardner, is a protagonist?
So I think he's the protagonist because if I'm interpreting the protagonist as somebody who, kind of acts for the good guys in the movie, I think for the most part, I agree with you that in traditional Lovecraftian works, we don't always see things from the point of view of the protagonist. But I feel like he does everything possible to protect his family. He himself is he tries to be a good person. But I almost feel like he's also the one who I think he does even more acting in terms of actions that he takes than Lavinia. I think, he makes the call to, not immediately kill the, mutated half-human beast. He goes and kills the alpaca monster. He goes and saves his daughter from the he regains his sanity to save his daughter's life.
Yeah, but he put his daughter's life in danger in the first place.
He did. But I'm saying that he's the one acting. He's the one doing all these things. So I feel like he is the protagonist because he's doing all that. He's not being acted upon. He is doing all the acting. So, and again, in Lovecraftian movies, I think it can be kind of difficult because of the descent into madness trope.
Yeah.
People swap sides like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I do think that. Now, I will say, I think the observer of all of this, like Nico was saying, the outsider perspective comes from the literal outsider of Ward, who he witnesses everything, and it's almost like his role to see that. And I don't know. I definitely think that's it. But I can see your point of view, though, for Lavinia being the protagonist.
I want to add in here, too, that Ward is the only black character in this, and he fucking lives. And shout outs to my boy, Richard Stanley, for that.
Subverted the trope. There you go. Now, this is tough to pick one.
Oh, my God.
What's your favorite scene in this movie, if you had to pick one? Does anyone know? Can anyone lead?
Shit, man.
I think my favorite scene, and this is really, really hard because there were a lot, but I think mine would actually be the very, very last scene. Because of this setting. I actually don't really care. Like the last scene is Ward kind of narrating again. I kind of don't really care about what he said, but what I thought was very interesting was he's standing on a bridge and you see the sky just lit up, on those fall winter nights where the sky is just super vibrant, pink, orange, all these different colors. You see that sky and it's super ethereal and very, over the top, but natural, nature over the top kind of thing. It wasn't post-processed.
It's also literally
too
from
much
the top down.
Right. But what I thought was really interesting about that and sort of beautiful and I'm trying to figure out the deeper meaning of it, and I kind of haven't, but that's part of the reason why I like it, is that the whole movie, it's about this color from outer space, and it's portrayed as this very vibrant magenta color, like we talked about. And then you even mentioned before, like as the ending events are happening in the area of effect, everything, it's just a complete whiteout, and everything is completely white, like all color pretty much disappears.
It's kind of harrowing.
Right, exactly. And he crawls out of it and whatever. And then there's a small time skip. And now we again have this very vibrant color that is natural, 100% natural, not a color out of space, but looks similar in the vibrantness of it. And I don't know. I just thought that was really, really, like, one, beautiful to look at, but two, again, I'm trying to figure out kind of a deeper meaning in that. And I don't even know if one is there, but I just really liked that juxtaposition, I guess, of the vibrance of the color from space versus at the end when there's no color and then all color comes back, but it's natural.
Nico,
So
you
I
have
have, yeah, I do, and I want to know if it's okay with you guys if I do this. I have a favorite scene, but I also have a favorite reveal. If that's okay with you guys, we're doing like a twofer here.
all right,
cool.
post haste.
Okay, so my favorite reveal, and Justin can attest to this, we were watching it together at his place this last weekend, when the mother, Teresa, and Jack are running out into their front yard. This is about 2/3 through the way, or like just past the second half, maybe. The infection from the meteor, the color out of space, has, much more taken its hold and, rooted literally into the environment, and almost their entire yard is purple. And they go and they, being Teresa and the youngest son Jack, go out to the yard, and the two of them get attacked by this fuchsia lightning ethereal beam. And then about 5 minutes later, we see the family is obviously concerned, but there's the slowest pan over the couch to reveal that mother and son had fused together in a truly horrifying, grotesque example of body horror that actually elicited a genuine scare from me. But my favorite scene is immediately before Dan's favorite scene. So I am a huge fan of whenever there is color used to the benefit of a film, as we mentioned in Gretel and Hansel, and pretty much like every other thing we've done here. I absolutely love that. And the finale of the film is a conflict between Ward, a sheriff, and Nick Cage, who at this point has become reanimated and taken over by the color out of space. And we see all of these apparitions and visions and visual distortions that are just absolutely breathtakingly beautiful, where the background and the foreground begins to blend together and everything just looks like a surreal watercolor painting right up until we have the explosion of white. And it was just stunning to watch.
I agree. That was great. So my favorite scene, I'm going to go ahead and cheat like Nico and do a twofer here. Ooh. So my favorite character in this whole movie is actually, aside from Ward, is actually Ezra, played by Tommy Chong. So
of Cheech and Chong fame.
There's a scene where he talks to Ward. So he speaks to Ward twice. And then the third time he is deceased when Ward goes to try and talk to him again. But essentially he has like a recorder set up, and he's like, I can hear them under the floor chattering to themselves.
That was sick.
And then he talks about like how, his cat, which is a cat named G-Spot, which is hilarious, is gone. And he's like, oh, I'll let you know if I find G-Spot. And he's like, oh, you might not recognize him. And in the movie we see G-Spot gets basically turned into like a monster. And really, like Ezra just gives you so much in this movie. And from the little that you see of him, and then he gives his last kind of conversation is post-mortem with Ward. And he says, you know, like, we all
Through
know it's
recording.
coming. Yeah, through recording. He's like, we all know it's coming, but we can't get away. Like, they all drunk the water. Again, the water is such a central element to this movie, and people drink the water and ice, and like it causes change. Like Nathan, Nick Cage's character, takes a shower and it gives him like a rash just from like the water and you know what are the color in the water. And he's like, yeah, you know, like they drank the water and it got strong. It came from the stars. And, you know, it's making things like things are where it comes from, you know, like and you know, it's like he, in one of the conversations, he motions to himself, what's in here is out there now. And what's out there is in here. And then he's like, things ain't what they ought to be, you know, like it's changing and it's changing things to make it the way it wants things to be. And that to me is getting to the core basics of what I think cosmic horror is. That kind of undescribable dread that it's difficult to put into writing, but it is more so the feeling you get from something that has been adequately written, where the words and the description of the words are far less than the totality of the dread and terror that you feel from having read them. So that's what I think is probably my favorite scene in the movie. Scenes.
What do you think about so I think that this is, well, would you say this is a niche film?
Yes.
I hear some hesitation in your voice, Dan.
I guess I do, but to me it's right on the verge of being niche or not being niche. Like it's close.
Okay. Well, that actually takes us into another topic I kind of wanted to talk about, which is, do you think this movie is for everyone? Nico?
See, what you had described about, you know, what you and we all love about cosmic horror is what I also love about it, where there's a true sense of the unknown. And in a traditional, or maybe not traditional, but in a Western narrative styling that we are mostly used to, we don't get the answers. We don't find out where this meteor come from. We don't find out like if there's any name to this thing. We don't, there's no real solution. Cosmic horror is a very reactive genre, and by that I mean it is the characters trying their best just to survive, as opposed to, all right, we got to get this back to the boys at the lab, and then they can send it over to B Squad and whatever. No, it's not it's not what most people are going to be used to. Do I want everyone to see this? Oh my God, yes. I want everyone to go like right now and watch it. But I do not think it is for someone who, if your favorite movie is Nightmare on Elm Street, I don't think, well, maybe not Nightmare on Elm Street. If your favorite movie is, I don't know.
If you're looking for more action and more stuff happening,
then not this. Yeah. This is much more cerebral. And I love that shit, but I know that it's not for everyone. I don't think that it is like, I don't think that this is necessarily an art house or avant-garde movie though.
No, but I do think it straddles the line sometimes.
Yeah. And one thing, I was reading some people's reviews and like a lot of people loved it. Some people like hated it. And reading through the reviews of the people who hated it, I feel like they didn't understand it, or they're looking at it from the wrong perspective. And I'm glad we had the conversation about who the protagonist is. And obviously there's some leeway on who actually is the protagonist, just no clear answer. But I think that's part of the reason why people didn't always get it, because some people I saw were like, oh, Nick Cage's character doesn't do X, Y, or Z or whatever, but he's not the center character. And again, like, yeah, I know Justin like thinks he's the protagonist, and that's cool. Like we can have those disagreements and whatever, but even just by our discussion, it's clear that there's no clear main character.
True.
So if you're expecting that Nick Cage is the biggest name actor on the film, so therefore he is the main character and everything is going to happen to and around him and everything like that, I think you're going to be looking at it wrong. And I think early on, because we deal with like descent into madness, I think some people missed and might miss what the madness is doing.
Absolutely.
because like there's a part, like we mentioned alpacas once or twice. The family has a couple alpacas that apparently, like obviously the family doesn't really care about them. Like it seems like the father, Nick Cage, just like sort of got them on a whim, and now they have to care for these like alpacas. So Nick Cage's character makes a big deal out of they have to be, put back in the barn by 10 o'clock or whatever. So throughout the movie, the alpacas get out or like shit starts going on, so they don't get put back or whatever. And every time Nick Cage's character freaks out more and more and more and more. And it seems like a lot of people thought that was supposed to be humorous or something, or didn't quite get it. And it's not humorous. The point is, it's a little thing that's not really that important and seems sort of humorous at the beginning, but because of the madness and everything affecting you, they are making it more and more and more of a big deal.
True.
So I think that some of the stuff, at least the first chunk of the movie, first half of the movie, maybe it might be easy to miss, or because it's not as action oriented, people might not quite get it. So I agree totally with you, Nico, that like there's not enough going on for everyone to fully enjoy it. But I do want a lot of people to watch it because I loved it.
Agreed. Now, we all pretty much liked it, but was there anything in, try and keep it to like one thing if you can. Anything in particular you didn't like, or something that might have struck you wrong?
For me, no, unless I'm being, again, super nitpicky.
I mean, if you have to, just pick one small thing.
Nick Cage just overacting just the barest amount for me.
Got you.
I have one very immature nitpick, and that is that they didn't make a really bad like dad joke about, hey, you know what they call me, the hydrologist, because I make all the bitches wet. No, like I have no criticisms, honestly, and that is rare.
For me, I don't have any major criticisms either. My only thing is, I think, and again, this is like a super, super, super small nitpick, Ward disappears for a large chunk of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene basically where he starts to see the color appear. So what we see from Ward's perspective is it's late at night. He's got a flashlight and flashing it around the woods. And he's basically seeing like visual distortions of the color. And then we just don't see him again for a long time. I liked, and I really did like, the kind of plot of Ward kind of working his own answers out. Like, he's the first person to notice, aside from Ezra, to notice that something's really wrong. And he keeps pushing and he keeps fighting for it. I would have liked more Ward. He's also the only one who lived, so I kind of got what I wanted.
I think that was somewhat intentional, and we might potentially be jumping the gun here in our structure, but there have been a couple statements from Richard Stanley and other people who worked on it that there will be a sequel, another movie like this in the style of this, dealing with two more stories from Lovecraft, and that Elliot Knight as Ward would be returning. And I think that is... I think the removal of him, or the sparse inclusion of him, was intentional so that we could get more of the perspective of the gardener's, slow descent into catatonic madness. But I think that does set him up for more of an involvement in the next film.
So you think he's going to be more involved in the future movies?
I think so. I think
he might be minor.
Well, I think that he will have a minor but important role, perhaps as an oracle-like figure, where, you have the archetype of the wise sage or seer oracle who warns people and gives our heroes advice while they're still on their journey and stuff like that. I could see him being kind of like what Ezra was in the next film.
Okay. So, and I guess another question I have for you guys is, do you think there's anything you could really do differently, or is it just kind of like a situation where it's cosmic horror, so you're essentially done?
Yeah, I guess I have two answers to that. One is sort of semi-comical, but I think in reality, you're right. Cosmic horror, there's not much you can do. You're pretty much doomed from the start. But I will say, the very first scene when Ward is walking there and meets Lavidia, and she's like in the middle of trying to do like a enchantment or like a ritual thing, I would have just been like, nope, I'm not. Nope, these country white people, nope, not doing this. Like, I'm out. And I would have just like done the bare minimum for my job as quick as possible to leave. Like, Nah. If I walk around in some woods and see some girl trying to perform ritual, nope.
True. Nico, anything you do different?
See, I'm like-minded both in that I would leave sooner, but if I were Lavinia specifically, and I would have tried, but I don't think I would have been successful because there was a point about 2/3 of the way through the movie where her brother Benny even says that he doesn't know how, but he got lost just walking around outside when he was trying to take the alpacas for a walk and bring them back in. And he wasn't even going very far, mind. He was just like in the backyard and he gets lost. It's something where we can see, or at least infer, that there is this intangible presence that's going against them. So I would have certainly tried to at least hoof it out of there. I don't think I would have been successful.
All right. I guess my answer is kind of like Dan's, semi-comical in a way, but Lavinia was out here trying to cast spells from the Necronomicon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nah. I'd find God.
Right.
Try and let that give me the upper hand. No, but in all seriousness, not much you can do. And Dan is correct. In most 99% of, cosmic horror, you're done. As soon as the story starts, you're already done. You're not going to beat, an old one. You're not going to beat some cosmic force without an equal and, opposite to help you out in some way, shape, or form. And that never happens. So I agree with you guys. But, and here's where we get down to, the nitty gritty of it, shall I say. Color Out of Space is sitting at an 85% fresh from critics.
Wow,
Rotten
color me
Tomatoes.
surprised.
Oh.
I don't know.
Oh my God, shut up.
So the audience, it's sitting at an 82%. So pretty consistent. First off, do you guys agree with that rating? Start with you, Dan.
I would like it a little bit higher, maybe like an 87 to 90.
Okay.
But I'm pretty happy with that. I was kind of expecting those numbers to be lower. I mean, I don't agree with lower numbers, but I kind of expected those numbers to be lower.
Gotcha. Nico, agreed?
Agreed. Only insofar as I would like it to also be higher, but I was thinking around like a 90 or so. I think that it is absolutely worthy of critical acclaim. Yeah.
Okay. And I will say this as well. This is the first time I think we've all been in pretty much agreement in unison. I would like to see it somewhere around 90 as well. And I know Rotten Tomatoes is an aggregator, sue me. I think that, I don't know. I think this is something this is one of the few. So I actually, full disclosure, I rented the movie for Nico and I to watch. However, I actually bought the movie after having just watched it.
Literally, so did I. The minute we finished, and Justin, you can even tell them that I said this. Like I said, I'm going to buy this right now.
Well, as he said, he did say that.
That's what he said.
And that is in fact what was said. So, per my earlier email. But no, I will say it's, oh man, I just really enjoyed this movie. So can we agree this is going to get the Don't Open That Door gold seal of approval?
Yes.
Yes, for the second time.
Second time. So Color Out of Space joins Train to Busan in the legendary, most acclaimed, oft sought but not oft reached Don't Open That Door Hall of Fame. So please, if you haven't already, we would definitely tell you to go see this movie. Any last thoughts you guys want to get off your chest before we close it out for the evening?
It's really good.
It is really good.
The only thought I have, and I feel like you will probably echo this as well, Justin. We are eventually going to do an episode on Midsummer, which is my favorite movie I've seen in years, and this is the best movie I've seen since that. Go see this movie.
I could not say it any better myself. So if you enjoy what we do, please go ahead and give us a follow or a like on Facebook. Don't Open That Door podcast. We're on Twitter as well. Don't Open That Door. And of course, Instagram, Don't Open That Door pod. So yeah, that's it from Justin, Nico, and Dan. You know, telling you as always, stay safe. If you haven't seen the movie, please go out and enjoy it. Oh, one last thing. Don't open that door. Have a nice night.